call this meeting of the Utility Commission organizational meeting to order. Roll has been taken. Need a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Public appearances,
That's for the next meeting.
that's for the next, okay. That's the records day. So. All right, I will turn the meeting over to Mr. Caniff.
Well, I'll open nomination for the Utility Commission President. Any nominations?
Who's willing to take it?
You.
I'll nominate Robert Oppel.
Nominate, is there a second to that? Don't need a second.
Yes.
I'll second. Nomination made by Evans, second by Coons. All in favor?
Aye.
Is there any more nominations? Is there any more nominations? Is there any more nominations? I believe you are the president.
We need a roll call vote
Okay.
according to what it states here.
Coons?
Aye.
Evans?
Aye.
Brown?
Aye.
Otto?
Abstain.
Aye.
So it's 4. All right. Vice President. Don't want everybody speak at once.
Again, who's willing?
We only have 3, you only have 2 choices.
I know that, but who's willing? I guess that's what I'm asking. I know right now we have 2 people that are, but if they're not willing to serve in that position, we're in a different set of dynamics, so. Are you willing to serve in that position?
I'd nominate Ross Caniff to be our secretary vice president.
Evans is second.
Yes, I will second.
Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Okay. Okay, if that, so. So. Brown,
Aye.
Evans,
Aye.
Kuhn,
Aye.
Phil, aye. Caniff,
Aye.
you vote for yourself.
Why not?
I guess I should.
Why not?
I was making it unanimous, huh?
You can vote for yourself in a public office, why couldn't you vote for yourself in this one? Makes no sense to me, but.
Motion is carried 5-0. All right, set date and time for monthly meetings. You want to have them at 6 o'clock yet, or change the time, or what do you want to do?
we make them any later, we'll be here till 10:30. I move to continue meetings first Monday of the month at 6 o'clock.
I'll second that.
Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried, 5-0. Annual organizational meeting, I like it at 6. At 5:45, some people might have a problem being. Is that all right?
Mhm.
I will make the motion that we have it started at 6 o'clock.
I'll second
And is that to be in November usually or December?
It will be in
November.
November. So, is there any discussion at all on it? If not, all in favor of the motion to have the organizational meeting the first Monday in November at 6 o'clock, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Public Works, Mr. Caniff. No, never mind, Mr. Coons is on there. Is that right? Yeah. Caniff, the Plan Commission. Personnel, Mr. Caniff. Mr. Affeld. Director of WPPI Energy will be Mr. Affeld. Alternate will be Mr. Katinger. Excuse me, I apologize. Mr. Gallman. Need a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. All right. That's the easy one.
You guys got lots to do right now, so much. Does that go with That's so bad.
How's it going?
Since they take out like two
I
feet
have
past
that.
the curb.
And Nicole and I say first,
We just like
Mhm.
our
but
pipe,
these people are all here, is it possible they can
taking everything out,
do
getting ready
it
for
first
spring.
and then, I don't know
Spring,
how,
pull
what
wire,
this
put it
guy
down
set up
to
with the.
Never planned for 6:50. We're wrapping that up, hopefully.
Yeah,
Are you guys set up?
They have. Huh? Yeah, I'm ready, so we'll do MSA first.
because NSA's not here yet, so I thought, didn't know if we
Oh,
wanted to
yeah,
start
we can.
early and we can do these
Yeah,
things.
that's fine.
Is that all right? I'm just thinking that we can start here and NSA isn't there. And I can start meeting a couple months early maybe.
Right away. Pick on me.
Yeah.
Matt's not here, so.
I can give a rundown what that's all about. I asked them to come to this meeting.
Yeah, Matt's gonna take a while.
Yeah. I didn't want them to have to sit through all that.
As we had that meeting we went to. Since then.
We'll have them present. You gotta wait for someone else?
I do, yeah. She's running 5 minutes behind. I can start talking about mine right now.
We're gonna move you to number 2. That's all right.
Yep.
You handle number 2 better.
That's my thing.
Good old wastewater joke.
You got,
Actually, I'll take one of them.
no, sorry.
Just kidding.
I'll send you a link for that.
That's pretty neat. Hi, can you hear us?
Did you get yours today?
Last week, I think. Maybe not.
There's the one here, how 13 communities got together to do a fire department with EMS.
13.
Fire and EMS.
Yeah. Can you guys hear us?
We can now. Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect. We are ready for you guys whenever.
Hey,
You didn't call the meeting to order yet.
Oh, it's recorded. I got it recorded.
Okay, you guys can come up and we'll just start it and have it.
You didn't,
They've got
you
nothing
didn't
to
call
do
the
with this
meeting to
map.
order.
We got nothing to do with that?
No,
No,
this is the duplex on South Fairfield Street.
Okay,
Yeah,
You still start your meeting, so.
you gotta call the meeting to order.
Now we gotta call the meeting in
I
order.
guess we can call the meeting. All
All
right, let's call the meeting in order and roll has been taken. But sooner or later, I'll catch on to what's going on.
What you wanna do is move them to the front, correct?
Right,
Yes.
make that
Yeah.
motion.
I'd move to approve the agenda with the following change. To move the report of officials where we discussed to approve, to delay abandonment of the utilities at the house on South Fairfield that burned down to be first. And then move from there to,
Okay. So move. Is
that's,
there a second to that?
I'll second.
All right, got a motion and a second. All in favor of that motion signify by stating aye.
aye.
Opposed?
Okay, these two people have been running into one roadblock after another, trying to abandon their half of the duplex that was burnt over a year ago in August on South Fairfield Avenue. We presently have an ordinance that requires after a year that those utilities be abandoned. Right now, their game plan is, or hopefully their game plan is, to be able to get the other person to respond so they can move ahead with tearing down the total duplex and then putting the lot up for sale. So naturally, the lot with utilities would naturally be worth much more than a lot where somebody would have to come in and dig in new utilities. I told them one thing, there'd be a contingency if you approve this tonight, that they get a licensed plumber in there to properly abandon or plug the sanitary sewer so that we're assured we don't have any infiltration coming into that by way of groundwater washing into the basement and hitting the floor drains in there. Pretty much in a nutshell. Did I say it right for you?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I mean, right now, the town has a resolution to seek legal action against the other half of the duplex owner because she's been absent for
Over a year?
essentially a year. And we can't proceed because of the zero lot line property. So right now, we do have a demolition contractor that is Jaws Demo that has already made a presentation to the common council meeting, mildly, I guess, and then the plan is to abandon on the property the utilities market, and he's actually interested in taking over the entire property and then building on it right away. So as soon as the city side's done as well, or unless we can try to entice Devon to relinquish her half of the property. So that's currently the plan, but otherwise, that's two sets of utilities that would have to get taken out to the main and 2 road permits opened, and one, unfortunately, the city's gonna have to cover the bill for until they get the money out of Devon. So it's beneficial for all of us to be involved and helps speed along the sale process on it.
Guess the long and the short of it is these people have gone through heck to try and move forward with this thing. City attorney is now proceeding with condemnation notices, and hopefully that'll get the other party off center to make a decision on what she wants to do. There's about $7,400, I understand, that was held back from her insurance payout. So in other words, she received everything but $7,400 is being left in escrow to contribute towards a demo. Of course, these people found out that hardly scratches the surface of what it's going to cost to tear it down and haul it away. But apparently, you're dealing with somebody that's interested in the lot, so
Correct.
maybe it can happen to your
Yeah.
favor, I guess. So I guess if you want to put a 6-month waiver on that abandonment of utilities, I guess I would encourage the commission to see fit to do so.
I would almost ask for a year, because I mean, we might not be able to proceed with demolition till spring at this point, and then that lets them be able to go into it. Because if the ground's frozen, they aren't going to be able to tear into it very well. And the court proceeding time to condemn on her property.
Okay. I was hoping they were going to get that tore down. I've gotten plenty of complaints about the ice.
I know. Well,
So.
it's all on when you guys, or the city takes possession of the property, the other half. And then as soon as that happens legally, we can all proceed forward on it.
Do you have any time frame from the attorney when that,
That goes.
I didn't know if you.
First, they had a
anything else.
locator yet. I don't know if they have or not. They want to hand deliver the summons, so.
I have sent Chief Beal the address and the information on her sister and brother-in-law.
Okay.
So they live in Beaver Dam area, so town of Westford. So
Okay.
hopefully he can locate her that way too.
Sounds good.
I would move to approve the delay of the abandonment of the utilities at the house on South Fairfield that burned down for 9 months to be reevaluated no later than 9 months.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there any discussion?
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
Oh,
It's on,
It's
A,
under line.
A2.
It's on your second page.
I guess there ought to be a stipulation on sealing the sanitary
Was that
sewer
why you moved it up
within
from
the
there?
basement
Okay.
right now.
Alright,
So that should be a stipulation of your motion, Cheryl, about immediately securing the sanitary sewer from any infiltration.
So be it.
We can do that on our side, but once again, can't.
Yep. Half is better than none.
With that stipulation,
Yes.
okay? All right, all in favor of the motion to abandon it for delay the abandonment for 9 months? Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
Thank you.
You are welcome. Hope it all goes well. All right. Moving on to this one.
We got Martin Riley of Architects Engineering. They're presenting the Dodge County Housing, the Sunset View, which is going to be across from the Dodge School District. We have with us Matthew, Donna, and Tori, I believe. Is that correct?
Good evening, yes. My name is Matt Wiedenhoft, and unfortunately I don't have a camera anymore, but Tori is also with us. And Tori will be doing most of the presenting this evening as our civil engineer, and I'm here basically to answer any questions that he can't answer, which might relate more to the Housing Authority itself. But I'm going to let Tori start. He's got basically some, we were at the Plan Commission meeting last week, and some questions arose which we thought we had checked into regarding sewer and water and some other items, so we just wanted to get some clarifications.
Hello. Thank you.
Turn it up.
Just so everyone's clear where the property is, it is on Western Avenue. This long parcel, if you're able to see my screen, we have that.
Is everyone able to see the screen?
We do. I'm adjusting the microphone right now. You can continue though.
Okay.
Okay. Our plans are rotated, so north is to the left on this side. I guess the first question we had were utility easements. These are going to be duplex units, but they will not be subdivided into individual parcels. So it will be a single parcel owned by the Housing Authority. And I guess our question, we were told that there would be utility easements would be required through here. I didn't know if we could get some input on that. I think our thinking was that this would remain a private drive, and that the laterals and stuff would be private services.
I guess I can give them a background on this, Mayor Dan Wagner. I brought that up that right now, just so everybody's aware, this is a planned unit development. So in other words, this is their own little campus where they handle all their own utility infrastructure as well as maintaining it in the future. They're well aware of the looping of the water main and whatever, but when it came up to the sewer laterals that are feeding each duplex, for a period of time, and I don't know if we ever changed it in our construction standards or not, we did allow zero lot line duplexes to be able to share one sewer lateral out to the street. Now they're talking about running just one sewer lateral to each building rather than having two independent ones, which we tried to promote. I think after the last construction on South Main Street, it got to be kind of hairy with trying to locate the water shutoffs, et cetera, et cetera. So we were trying to promote having two of them coming out of each building, one for each half. Now this is a total rental situation by Dodge County Housing Authority. So in other words, we don't have the situation where one homeowner is gonna come after the zero lot line owner next door when the sewer lateral plugs because somebody put diapers down it or whatever, and now they got their hand out to share the cost in walking the sewer. So that's, I think, what we always had in the back of our mind, to avoid any issues like that in the future. We would require even zero lot line and duplexes to have independent water and sewer laterals out to the street. So now this is a case where they did lay this building out sharing a sewer lateral. And I don't know, were we sharing the water lateral as well?
The water, I believe we were sharing it, we were combining them and then taking it out. Typically, the water meters would be inside the house right here, and then the other one would be inside this unit on this side. These are 2 units with a garage between them. So the demising walls in the middle here, we shifted the water line to one side to avoid that. But our goal was to use a single water service.
And what they're doing here,
The building.
what they're doing here has been accepted in Juneau for many years. But I guess just lately, and I don't know if we changed our construction standard or not, I couldn't say for sure, but we lean towards encouraging people. I think the last duplexes that were built on Jewel Street, I think we did require him to put individual sewer laterals and water shutoffs at the street for each half. But now this being commonly owned, the whole complex, this is 15 duplexes, so in other words 30 units, individual units that are owned by Dodge County. I don't think we can really dictate that because of the fact that it is a PUD, a planned unit development, where they completely own all the infrastructure and what have you, and as long as it passes the Wisconsin State Plumbing Codes, I think we can allow them to do this because we're not going to have to worry about it. It's under their roof or underneath their jurisdictions. Correct? I don't know if you can hear me.
Oh, is that back to us?
Yep, I'm throwing.
Yes, that is correct. That was the understanding of the Housing Authority, and that was under our understanding when we were designing this. And Tori, do you want to? I see you've redlined the sewer and water on one of the split units with the garage in the middle. Do you want to also outline it on in between 2 of the Unit E buildings that are buried in the hillside?
Sure. Yeah, we have, I think these we have revised so that our sanitary would be combined out of there. Combined out there, and then internally they would be joined so that this is actually serving both units. So this structure, which is 2 units, and this structure, which would be 2 units, would be combined and then out to the sanitary lateral. There.
And once it's outside the dwelling, it does still move to a 6-inch.
Correct, yes. Within 5 feet, we have a clean out. And then it jumps up to a 6-inch before heading down to kind of the sewer main.
And then the water comes out from the front of each building, so each one has its own going over
Yes.
and then splitting in the building.
That is correct.
Now the only
We
handicap,
have a single,
the only downside on that water service being done that way, the utility doesn't have ability to be able to turn off the water for non-payment without affecting the other property owner. That's the upside with having two water services coming out independently, the 2 shutoffs out in the terrace area, that the water utility, if they had an issue with a tenant that wasn't paying the bill, they could shut the water off without affecting the one that was paying his bill.
I don't know offhand if the water utility will go to the to the renter?
Who's paying for the water?
That's a good question, and I'm afraid I don't have the answer from the housing authority. Oftentimes, when we work with housing authorities, they may have gas and electricity under the renter's name, but usually water is not. So that's a good question. I will have to ask. I'll have to ask the Dodge County Housing Authority if that would even be the case.
Well, Donna did state that everybody was gonna be metered independently.
All right, well, in that case, then I guess that is something, I guess would that still be true of the other units as well?
Other units, I'm not following you.
The units he's showing you right now are Unit E's that are east of the drive, and they have a slightly different layout than the ones that are west of the drive. So I'm asking Tori, if you want to, Tori, you're suggesting that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, on these, we could put a shut off on the exterior, it would just be at the back. We could add a valve here so that it could be shut off independent, it just wouldn't be at the curb. Short of running an additional second connection.
Right, it all still be owned privately, I guess, by the housing authority, correct? I mean, it's all still on their property no matter what. Does it matter if it's at the street or if it's behind?
Well, I'm sure the utility would prefer to have it in the terrace area in front, that it's readily accessible, that they're in the between the curb and the sidewalk, or in your, I know you only have sidewalk on one side, but they would certainly prefer to that because it's ready access for them for locating and what have you.
But if it's private, will they be locating anything?
Well, if they have to shut it off.
Why don't they just do a compound meter in the street?
That's what I'm saying. Why don't they just do a compound meter, have a primary, everything's...
Let them all take care of their own stuff.
Well, I think they're looking to their tenants to pay their own water bills. I don't think Dodge County wants to get involved with divvying up water bills for 30 tenants. I think they want to keep it clean like that, but.
Well, then they're definitely gonna have to have outside shut-offs, there's
Yeah.
no way around it.
All right. I think it's just good
With the
practice.
outside shutoffs.
I think it's just good practice that there be an individual curb stop for each unit. So in other words, you'd have 30 shutoffs involved out in the terrace area that'd be readily available for the utility personnel to be able to access.
Okay, at which point we're basically then running two lines into each unit.
Yeah, and with PEX, that isn't a huge expense. Do we supply the shutoffs?
I don't know. Depends on what it is in the contract.
Okay. Well, this is, like I said, a little different. But I thought we supplied shutoffs on the other projects.
We have, yeah. If it's in the backyard, people could put items over the top of that valve, you know.
I don't understand if that's a hardship for the utility to be able to provide the shutoff.
Instead of just 2 hours.
Well, I guess the first steps would be to find out what Dodge County Housing is gonna be setting the standard for what's being paid by who as far as the utilities. Right?
Well, that was asked at the planning commission meeting, and Donna did tell us that each tenant would be paying their own electric, water, and sewer.
Okay, then yeah.
So that was a definite. I brought that up at that meeting, so this is where we don't want to delay this for them any further. I guess I'd suggest a waiver on the sewer, but I think you need to maintain the separate water laterals inside there, because I think that would be a way that you still have some control over a delinquent water user or delinquent utility payer, and I don't know where we stand.
All right.
Would we want to provide the shutoffs for them?
I guess,
Yeah.
yes, we would, as long as they're.
If that would help you out and utility would supply you with the shut-offs, then all you'd be doing is taking your inch service off the shut-off into each individual unit, a different route.
Same trench even, it's.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful. All right, so Tori, we're gonna provide separate water off the main with a shut-off for each unit.
Okay. And then, just due to the location of where we had planned that mechanical, did we want to take the same route? And then would this be an at-grade, a casting basically in the driveway?
We still want the meter in the same spot in the basement. So, boy, yes, I guess it is going to have to be a casting in the concrete.
Okay. So I guess we can move on to the answers that pretty well. We are tying in with two T's or two taps. One over here, tapping, and then it does loop through and tap right here as well. Tapping over here between these two units. The circles I've got, we were told that the standard for fire hydrant spacing was 300 feet. Along Western Avenue, there are two fire hydrants, and I believe they are spaced at 500 feet. I have drawn circles representing 300-foot radii from each of those. We've added one proposed hydrant in, that is this circle here. So this one here is the proposed one, and then the other two are the existing. Does that sufficiently meet the requirements? All the houses are reached entirely within a 300-foot radius of a hydrant.
That I would say would be adequate, yes. They're spaced a little farther in the industrial park because of the distance of the lots and the frontage of the lots. But yeah, that would, you've got one at each end or at the opening or the road access of each end. I would think that would be more than adequate.
Yeah, the existing one is right here, near the entrance, and then similarly, there's one at the other side.
It would be more helpful if you brought them in further into the curve, so that if you did set up a fire truck with a pumper, that it would be closer to the straightaway. In other words, when we commonly
The hydrants that he's showing are existing hydrants. We would only be adding one hydrant in the location. There you go.
Right, yeah. Right in the middle of the long street.
Yeah, that would work. That would work.
Would the city be responsible for that?
And we could break that out to the curb, between the sidewalk and the curb if that's desired.
Yep, that would work.
That's a better location. Okay, we'll make that revision.
Most of our fire trucks draw off the hydrant off the side of the truck, so they'll like to come up alongside of it with a short length and tap onto the hydrant, and the attack lines go off the other side of the truck or the end of the truck.
Okay, I believe the last question we had was, we didn't depict any electrical services entering the units, or transformer locations. We do have solar panels on the roofs and some for street lighting.
There was a question that came up at the meeting last week about accessing the rear of the units for electrical, and I guess I wanted to bring it up again tonight because I'm not sure that I understood what was being asked, I guess.
Yeah, so this is Nick Gallman, the electric superintendent. So to provide power to that, those houses, we would need access or an easement to the backyard lot lines for both sides of the street. So it would be the west side of the houses on the west side of the street, and then also the east side backyards of the east side of the street houses, so we could create a loop system, electrical feed. And I can discuss with you outside of the meeting where we are thinking for locations of our transformers.
That would be great.
But a question I have is, do we know the size services per duplex? Are we looking at 100 amp service per side? Are we looking at 200 amp services? What, you guys have an idea what they were looking at for those households?
Hold on just a second. Let me see if I can look that up real quick.
And I'm assuming utilities, electric entrances would be center of the backs of the houses, typically, like between
The parting wall.
yeah, between the parting wall. I would assume that's typically what we see. We see one service coming in, and then they have a dual gang meter pedestal. So you only have one service going to each duplex, and then it splits into 2 meters.
If you remember, I asked you to bring up the exposure of the east side. You brought that up. You have that picture there so Nick can see that it's level terrain going up to the back of the building, that of the ones that are backed into the hill on the east.
Okay, the panels are shown as 125 amp panels.
Okay.
If I remember right, that's what you had in Horicon.
Could be.
Were you looking for the elevation view of the...
Right, that east elevation of the one that's backed in the hill. That's what I brought up at Planning Commission. I knew that Nick was going to need a path to each building to the rear lot line. So that's what we talked about, access from the rear, that the terrain would be easily accessible from the back lot line to each individual duplex, coming into the center and partying on the wall on the east side of those.
Hey Matt, which folder would that best be found in?
What are you looking for?
The last page.
The elevation view, site elevation of the units.
Okay, that's going to be you want to know where the file folder is? Hold on. Let me see if I
A201.
can find it. Yeah, it's going to be an A201. And let me see if I can grab that.
What's there?
What you're showing them is units A and D.
It's
If they want
203.
E, go, yeah, there you go.
2 3. There we go.
That's it, right there.
Top view there. So yeah, the garages will be down below, open up. There's staircases at the front. On the back, there's a connecting sidewalk that'll be flush with the upper floor.
That's a backfilled basement there, that's not exposed, that's backfilled, the white box is underground.
So you mentioned some solar street lighting. I'm assuming you guys are still gonna have or want a service going to that street lighting, or is that not correct?
Correct. We show a service on the civil drawings and on the, I believe it's on the E101 in the sheet. It's, I believe, in the sheet set that you have. But Tori, isn't it also on your civil drawings?
I don't believe
In the
I
dumpster.
showed
It's
that.
next to the garbage,
in the
or
dumpster,
it's next to
it'll
the
show where it's
trash
gonna be.
enclosure.
Yeah, I show where the panel is. I just don't have the service to it. Yeah, right here is the.
That's the solar array, and on the E101 sheet next to the solar array, it also shows he calls out a meter.
Is that gonna be like a standalone pedestal, or is that gonna be on that foundation of the dumpster site?
No, it actually is standalone. I asked him that myself, and the reason I originally gave him the dumpster as a location was because I thought he'd mount on the side of it. But our electrical engineer said it's standalone. Can you zoom in on electrical note 1? No, I'm sorry, not on the diamond itself, on the work descriptions up to the left. Oh, there you go, right there.
Yep. Tesco panel.
Tesco panel riser diagram is on E501. Yep. I don't think he included a 501. Oh, he did. There we go. So that's what you can see under 2. There you go. This is what our electrical engineer is proposing for the meter to mount to.
Sounds good. And then my last question for the electrical side, I see that there is some available lots going to the south of the eastern side of the road. Is there any plans for additional homes to be built on this site in the future?
There will never be homes on that piece. That piece is going to end up being quite steep, and part of our project requires that we meet certain green-built homes guidelines in order to meet the criteria for the lenders, which is WIDA and HUD. And so we have basically got a line there to where you want to go in the edge of the existing tree canopy. Yeah, that line is going to stay in order to meet some of those green build points, but more importantly, we're not going to be building over there because of the steep grade. It's the lowest point of the site, so it's the place where we want the retention, but it's also the highest point of the site, or the steepest, I should say, steepest grade of the site. So we purposefully avoided any homes in that area. We pushed them purposefully to the north to avoid building there, and there's no plans to ever build in that location.
And you mentioned solar for the street lighting. Did you also have any plans for solar on the buildings themselves?
Correct. Each unit has its own solar system, and we've got a chart in the specifications which calls out the number of panels per unit and the total kWh for each unit. by the panels, that is.
Okay. I do have some comments from the DPW superintendent as far as some minor concerns and alterations that he would like to see to the plans. Would you rather me talk to you outside of this meeting for that, or it would have to do with the parking stall, extension of the road, a couple of the storm water inlets, or one of the storm water inlets, and then the retention pond.
Is the stormwater at all affected by the utility committee that we're speaking with now? Otherwise, we'd be wasting their time, I guess, and we should probably talk afterwards.
Correct. It doesn't affect the utilities.
Okay, then we're more than happy to talk to you, Nick. Do you want us to just hold on until, I'm assuming you've got to continue with the meeting for a while, is that?
Yeah, why don't I send you an email following this, and then we can either set up another meeting or something and discuss further.
I'm just going to stay logged in. Tori, if you just stay logged in. Nick, then if you want to come back when you're done, we'll still just be in this same Zoom.
Sounds good.
All right, we'll see you in a minute. Thanks. Thank you. And thank you all for...
Anybody else got any questions? Okay.
More than a minute.
Why didn't you cut them off like that?
The property itself is kind of challenging because of the fact of the elevation of that hill to the east, but I think they did a pretty good job on making the most of the space that they had to deal with there. That question, same question was asked, and we saw the land that was available to the south, and they adamantly said that there wouldn't be any further construction because of the steepness of the hill there. And I thought we asked all the questions we needed to. I asked Dave to come just to make sure that I wasn't missing anything at all, and DPW has been appraised, and I did talk to Scott too as regard to that handicap stall up at the top of the hill. We pretty much said that we wouldn't require them to alter that because of the fact that that changes all of their grades for that sidewalk that goes down to the back of there. So I asked them to flare out to the full width of the street where Suncrest comes over so that they could push their snow to the northwest, and Scott said that would be fine then. So they could proceed with the plans as they got without going back to square one and doing all new grading, because they have to stay within the ADA specs as far as the sidewalks and stuff that access the back of those buildings up on the east side of their project there. So.
Yeah, and I just information for you guys, tentatively, we're looking at 4 transformers, 1,200 feet of primary, 2 section cabinets. I haven't decided how many pedestals yet, and 2 riser poles. So they do get charged for a primary extension. They don't get charged for placement of transformers. But so we'll get our costs as far as our primary wire and the labor it takes to dig all that wire in. We will have to job out the boring of the western, and outside of that, everything should be.
They do battery backups with their solar, or are we buying power back from them?
So it's probably gonna be set up. I don't know the details of that yet, because the plans I had stopped at 100. They had like 20 more pages on their plans than what I had. But from what it sounds like is that it'll be dual flow. They'll be putting some back on, which our rates and rules are designed to.
We have rules to handle buying power back from them?
Yep.
Probably at a much reduced rate?
Yes, and it's higher now, it's much higher now, but there's gonna be a change to that rates and rules because solar is taking off now, and we gotta protect the utility as far as.
How much added costs are we talking for those dual meters? For the
flow?
No, the tracking meter.
It's all built in our existing.
It is?
Yep, so every meter that's out on people's houses
right now
have the capability.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought there was a more elaborate meter that we were gonna have to invest in.
All it is
it's just a matter of what we pay them for that power.
We have to turn on a sensor where it then starts recording both ways.
And believe me, I tried to talk him out of that, Nick. Since we do sell electricity in Juneau, he
Yeah.
says we didn't need you saving anything on that.
But it sounds like things will be changing, you know, it sounds like WPPI is working on a new rates and rules as far as this because they're seeing the effects that it could potentially have on the utilities, where it's protecting the utilities because people could put a big solar panel on their house and
Yeah.
you
Well,
see
that location, you know, the east side will get about 4 hours of sun, and the west side will get about 4 hours of sun. The rest of the time, there won't be any sun because of the woods, so, you know.
But we will have, it'll be tight, especially on the west side homes, because it doesn't seem like there's a lot of area there between
No.
the ditch,
There-
or, I don't know if you, making them put a culvert in there or not.
Oh, yeah, no, it's all gonna be, the stormwater's gonna be
So there's
piped.
not gonna be much room between that ditch, the backyards, and where we need to get power through there, so that, I'll figure that all out with them. And
No, your secondary runs ought to be pretty short.
'cause it looks like they wanted to plant arborvitaes around, which would be right on the easement most likely.
Don't make us stay off.
So, taken care of.
We did tell them that we expected, at least a 7.5 foot utility easement on a joint, on a lot line, so we had 15 foot SWAT.
Right.
Now, naturally, on the west side, it would only be 7.5 feet that they'd be required to give us, but, that generally works pretty well for at least our utility and every other utility's access to be able to get stuff up into their buildings, so. They are making the most of the space. There's not a lot of space between buildings there and what have you, but being a planned unit development, they can waiver on some of the setback requirements, but we did stand pat on our front yard setback requirements, so.
If people want to look at these plans, I tried printing them off before the meeting, but every time I got to page 3, it failed to print for some reason. I don't know. I tried it in 3 different computers, so I couldn't get it to work. So I'll have to, if you guys are looking for plans, like we have one here to pass around. If you want to look at it quick after the meeting, otherwise,
We got them up at City Hall there too. So.
yeah.
We got a bigger one than that, Nick. I don't know if you
Okay.
need something bigger to sketch on or whatever.
The very north, the northest house, the duplex, they're gonna move it 2 to 4 feet back from the sidewalk, more north. They had a picture of a vehicle sitting there and it's a car. So if you have a truck, your bumper, your hitch is gonna hang over the sidewalk, being an impairment, so.
In R2 zoning, there is only a 20 foot setback requirement, so they had it pushed right out to the 20 foot mark. So.
So they decided that that would be a good idea to move that. They could move that those 2 to 4 feet, so.
Yeah, they're showing a 25-foot setback off of the sidewalk. I mean, there's not gonna be much room for utilities back there. We'll figure it out. Did they, I forgot to ask, did they give you a timeline on when they were,
Not until next year. Spring, they're hoping, they're not gonna do anything this year yet. But they do have all their funding in place from what I've seen.
so once I get design, place orders, because I got.
Yeah, transformers would probably be a kicker, but I can't see any of these units drawing a whole lot of power. That's when you asked me about service size, and I toured, Sean Hart and myself toured the ones in Horicon, and they're quite attractive units. They have 9-foot ceilings in them and whatever. They give a feeling of the space, but you're only talking about 1,200 square feet in each half, so they're not huge,
And they're
huge
probably,
buildings.
they're probably doing 125 amp services for the solar panels. That's probably the reason why they're doing that.
Probably.
Okay.
But I guess what we need from this utility commission is the agreement that they're allowed to use one sewer lateral coming in from the road for each 2 units, I guess. That's okay with you guys, because like I said, it is something that's been done in the past here, and it does meet plumbing code. There's nothing against that, and like I said, seeing how they're owning all the infrastructure here and maintaining it, it's really nothing off our back, you know, but I think the water services should be independent, that you got independent. Before the when we allowed that, we'd allow one 2-inch service into the terrace area, then 2 1-inch taken off of that, the Siamese off of that. So that might be something, as long as you get your 2 shutoffs in there, I think, and that's the important thing, that if you do have an on-pay and you get to that point. I realize it's very infrequent that we shut off water to the customer. Most of the time it's electric, and then they usually come around and they pay both the water, sewer, and electric bill all at the same time. But I think it's nice to protect you. And the extra cost for doing it that way, by the time they bring it into one basement, jump it over to the other basement, they're not saving a whole heck of a lot, not with the 1-inch PEX anymore, you know. So if it was copper, then I can see where they'd be squawking a little bit. But
Okay.
so I don't know if there's action that you're supposed to be taking here tonight. Not really.
On number 2 it is.
Okay.
I think you guys supplying the valves is probably a good idea. That way there you've got a brand of valve you have, you know, and you use and you got parts for.
Is that something that needs to be clarified, that you're providing the valves but not responsible for
Maintenance of them.
maintenance?
Right. It's up to them to exercise them and what have you. Unless for just good practice, you might want to exercise them or whatever. But I guess also the takeoffs off the main too, you want to make sure that they're following our construction standard for the kind of main water valve that you want off of Western, where they make their taps. Make sure you don't come in with some Chinese valve that you've never heard of, or, you know.
What kind of cost is there to the utility for this? I mean, what are we
That's what I was
eating?
wondering too. It's like, now I'm gonna have to order more parts, and it's hard enough to get the meter readers and the radios. There's like a 26-week lead time, so I just ordered like 20, I ordered 30 of each, so that's gonna use all that up, plus whatever's going on up at the Goose Park. So I guess I need to know, can I order more parts?
The good thing with being individually metered is you're making up your costs with meter charge.
Yeah.
Meter charge.
Right.
So I think for them going 2 meters, it's a no-brainer. Order them, you're gonna get your money back.
Right.
And yeah, that's long lead times. Mine are 38-week lead times right now, so I got probably 14 to do. I probably got enough just to do these, but I'll be making an order. Cause it's not like we got tons of buildings going up every day in here in Juneau, you know, it's by 25 meters a year. But yeah, I just order the stuff and.
Cost of the utility is probably minimal.
What's minimal anymore?
Compared to
I'm sorry, I just.
compared to some other development where they're taking care of all the infrastructure and what have you. You know, they're supplying all their own main, all their pipe and whatever. All we're doing is providing the facilities to meter their use. That's pretty much it, you know. Other than like where Nick, where he's bringing in wire and what have you for.
$60,000 probably.
That we're eating.
Well, that will be investing.
Yeah.
I mean, realistically, I'm like wire cost. I'm just going off of transformers and section cabinets. Probably $50,000, probably $50,000, $60,000 that we will be.
That we don't have in our budget right now.
Correct. But for the electric department,
Yeah, on the bright side for the water, it'll be
well
less.
off for that, but
Yeah,
unfortunately.
6.
I mean, we were looking at a booked income yet of $480,000, something like that.
Yeah.
15.
That duplexes. So it'll be 30 services for us. It's probably $400 a piece out for ours. So. I don't know. What that adds up to?
$8,000
Oh.
a transformer.
$12,000.
But we do have stock transformers, and I usually do a replacement, so there is budgeted money for this transformers already, so there is a lot of money set aside for the semi-construction and the cable and primary extension, we will be getting that money back. As well with that boring, the 2 small borers that I'm gonna have to do.
Is that something you have to have someone else do?
Yeah. Which that, it'll be minimal, but that'll be cost to them.
You're gonna be tying Western with a loop up to
Yes,
Ridge Road?
It'll be, most likely I'll have 2 risers coming across Western, and then there'll be basically a full loop going around all the houses there.
Sure.
So a riser coming across the 2 section cabinets, and then a loop across, and then, yeah, like I said, about 1,200 feet of primary, 4 transformers.
We've got NSA waiting.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Good.
All right,
So does it action need to be taken on any of this?
You said they're doing this next year, as in 2023 or 2024?
2023.
Next year being 1 month away.
Yeah.
Less than 1 month.
I don't see any buildings being completed until the very end of 2023, because they've got a lot of groundwork to do.
And in order for them to go forward, we need to approve the extension.
Yeah, well, I guess at least we've approved their project. So what needs to be done here is they get some direction whether they're allowed to go with 1 sewer lateral into each building.
I think I would specify both the sewer lateral and the 2 water laterals. I'd
Right.
specify that as well.
They've got our standards, so they should know everything as far as sizing and what have you. So they're planning on taking 6-inch tap off the mains and whatever, so I don't see that there's any problem with that. Peter, Alex, got anything?
I'm not responsible for cleaning the sewers, it's not my problem.
There you go.
So,
There you go.
Make it big enough.
Yeah.
I'm sure they'll put clean outs.
It's got to all abide by our construction standards, so.
2 valves is all we need on our end.
Yep. That we went across with them during that plan commission meeting. They,
Be easier if they just paid for all the water at once, but
yeah,
fine,
I
you
hear
can
you.
make more money on this way, so.
I mean, luckily we don't have any huge projects, so that's gonna be expensive little project for us.
Yeah.
I move to approve the extension of utilities for the new housing development on Western Ave with 2 water lines into each unit and a single sewer line approved.
is there a second?
Also.
Ross seconds. Is there any more discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. All right. That, finally.
I brought
Thanks, Dave.
I brought 3 items to talk about today. I got Nicole here. She's on the funding team. She's doing other projects with the city and everything, so you guys might be familiar with her. We'll talk about the treatment plant upgrade just real quick. We'll talk about schedule and how that goes into funding, and then just have a discussion on how you guys want to move forward, kind of the impacts of it moving forward. And then we can run different scenarios. Nicole brought her laptop so we can punch in numbers, and if you guys have questions on some of that stuff, we can play around with the numbers. So the first thing is the treatment plant upgrade, and this is really just to keep you guys kind of in the loop Everything's been done in 3D. And so these are just a couple screenshots of what everything looks like so far. So this first image here, this figure 1, this is of the existing package plants. So if you go out on site, you'll see the 2 outdoor plants. That's what this is. And this shows the new modifications on there. If you go to the next page, figure 2 here is the oxidation ditch. So again, that's set up with the 3 rings or the racetracks. We have a selector here to try to get some biological phosphorus removal, reduce the amount of chemical that you guys are adding. So it's kind of a neat shot. Eventually here I'll send these links over to the plant staff and you guys can kind of spin around in 3D, and if you guys are interested I can always share a screen or something like that, and we can walk around the plant virtually. Any questions on the upgrade itself? All right, schedule. So I put a recommended schedule here. I know that there are major concerns with Sensient. And really the biggest, there's 2 big items. One is the interim financing, and then the other one is just the funding altogether. There's, you know, a deadline eventually that if things don't move forward, we miss that deadline, and then the question is what happens to the project? Do we reapply next year for the funding? Do you move forward with interim financing and then we apply for funding again to get paid back? Almost like a delayed way to go about it. So what I'm proposing to do is in the middle of this month is to post it to the public. We do our bid opening in January, and then we have an actual hard number for multiple contractors. I know the Sensient whole situation is up in the air, and so if Sensient, you know, doesn't come back, if there's no buy-in, just because you open the bid and we see all the numbers doesn't mean you have to move forward with the project. So I would say we post the project, we get the numbers, Sensient knows their number, you know your number, we know what the sewer rates need to be, and if Sensient isn't at the table at that point, you don't award the project. So just because we put it out for bid doesn't force you into constructing and raising rates for everybody. So I think posting it would also push Sensient along, and then also having a hard number that they know would probably help the situation as well, instead of saying you might owe $4 or you might owe $5 million. One of the rules for our, or at least in our bidding documents right now, is when you open the bid, you have 60 days to award it. So the commission would have 60 days to determine what we want to do. If those 60 days pass, then we don't have to award it, but that's kind of the timeline, and that's what contractors should hold their prices for as well. There's a certain date, and Nicole, if you remember off the top of your head, is with the interim financing, if we don't meet a certain date, then the interim financing becomes due, and you can't wrap it back into the Clean Water Fund loan. If we meet that date, then it goes into the loan.
Right. There's an interest payment due at the beginning of May, and there's a possibility we might be able to wrap it in, but it would just be a lot cleaner and easier if we can get the loan closed, which means that all the paperwork and everything is secure by the end of April. So that's the timeline that Matt has kind of laid out here would allow us to meet that timeline and get the loan closed and keep the project moving along. But I mean, like Matt said, if Sensient decides not to, contribute, or they're kind of dragging their feet with this, you guys can rebid the project. We technically have until June 30th with this application that we submitted in September. June 30th is kind of the final date that this funding cycle goes through. And then if we don't meet that June 30th deadline, you can reapply in September, and that gives you then another year to kind of go through the process. Or if you just decide to just, you know, not move forward because Sensient is whatever, but I mean, I don't think it needs to get to that point. I think Sensient, I think once we give them a hard number, I think that's going to be very helpful for them to see that. But I don't know. And funding wise, so I mean, this can kind of roll into on the next page. Just some things to to highlight. The funding list did come out for the projects that were submitted, and the city of Juneau did receive the $1 million in phosphorus PF, and then you guys actually received an additional 1.7. Right, 1.785 million in PF is what I'm estimating right now. Technically, the funding list shows you guys got a full 2 million, but I think once the Sensient piece comes out, you won't get principal forgiveness on that portion because they're paying it. So technically, you'll get the 1.7. And again, if the project costs are coming in lower, then you won't get that full amount of PF because it's a percentage of how much the project is. So, but still, that's a significant, that's a significant portion. You know, before the rules were that you would only get 750,000 max, but because of all the additional federal funding that's coming through, because of the COVID money, they increase the amount of PF. So this is only available for a short amount of time, which again, we want to help you guys take advantage of that too.
So during planning, Juneau was eligible for 15% of total projects, and with the new rules and the new money that came out, they bumped it to 25. Yeah. So.
And again, that could change next year, where you could get less or more depending on if there's like 7 different criteria that tell you what your PF is going to be, so, or PF percentage.
That 2.145% interest rate is from the Clean Water Fund?
That is from the Clean Water Fund, yeah. Yeah, and that is it is a subsidized rate. So the market rate right now is 3.9, and that's subject to change quarterly. So there is a potential that could change, either go up or down before we close on the loan.
And that loan can't be paid off prematurely.
It could be, yeah. If you guys know ahead of time that you wanted to pay, you know, do like a 10-year loan, we could talk to them and do that. Yeah, that's definitely an option. It would make your payments higher, which then would increase the rates required to meet those loan payments.
This is based on how many years? 20 years.
So we basically got 3 months for Sensient for that closing.
To fully commit.
I know they panicked. We sent them a bill for their share of the engineering costs. They're 34%.
Of what's been billed to date, not even the total.
Yeah, and they called me the day they got the bill, and they wanted to know how soon they had to pay that.
Yesterday?
Well, the bill came that was due the next day. They got it, according to what the bill said.
No, well, I don't know if it says
They didn't understand it, but they were, Jim Vermillion called me, he was beyond himself. He couldn't understand it, so.
Well, so that's good to know, because our total cost, they would have ended up paying for part of that anyway, right?
Yeah, so I mean, it's fair that you guys are billing them as you go. I think that's it's fair to do that.
What else can you do to get them off dead center. I mean, we've been debating this for 3 years now. I mean, this is pathetic.
I mean, they've had the day we talked, Matt and I met with them. We met with John Long and his boss. He hinted that the lawyers hadn't really gone over the contract yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, huh? You've had it for almost a year.
We changed it based on their feedback.
Right.
As well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
But they were still on that, could you take the whole thing? Could you take all of it? And we told them that over 6 months ago. No way.
Right, because you technically could take it on under a clean water fund loan, but then it would impact the tax exempt status of the loan. And it makes it a little bit more, and like the interest rate might be a little bit higher and things like that. So I wouldn't, right.
We don't have any interest in pulling all their stuff.
Right.
We would have to completely redesign the plant.
Oh, right, to take
in
on
order
more, you're right.
To take
right.
on more.
Yeah.
ditch would be bigger. I mean, we'd have to look at, I mean, I don't even know if the clarifiers and the excess flow tanks are big enough then, so.
Yeah, it's because their lagoons keep overflowing.
So, I mean, we told them at that time that there's no way. So, but they wanted our timeline, and you sent it to them now, right?
Well, I'm gonna send this, if you guys agree on these dates, then we'll get hard numbers and we'll see what they come back with. So this, what is it, February 6th, I believe that's the February meeting. But you would really have from January to March. And they would have that amount of time too to come forward with what they're gonna.
Don't let them know that.
Yeah, right.
Well,
Because March 6th would be the meeting for the utility commission. So really, prior to March 6th would be, we would need to know what sense yet.
So we have to know well
March
before
3rd would
then.
be-
Yeah, I would say,
We need to, the absolute, to me, we're looking at, we have to know them by beginning of January. We have to have that contract signed by January.
They were supposed to do it last
But we
February.
won't have the figures from the bids until after the middle of
They're
January.
dragging their feet. Are they can we,
There's,
it doesn't seem like they're gonna commit to it at all.
it's,
No, I think they're gonna drag their feet forever.
Yeah.
The only way they don't drag their feet forever is if we give them a good reason, like start restricting how much they can dump or what, and how much and what's in what they're dumping now. The only way I think we fix this is if we restrict that.
So we turn the valve off on them?
I would say I don't know that we turn the valve. If it comes to that, yeah, I would say we would have to come up with a new ordinance or whatever that's like we did last year and says, we're restricting the amount of whatever's in whatever they're giving us, and we restrict the amount. I would even say we could restrict the time of day when they can dump it. I don't know how that affects you guys, but
Oh, that'd be great if we could, cut them off like that, but I don't know that we can.
well, you make an ordinance and then they take it to the PSC and see what happens. But I mean, obviously we have I've been told, I don't know, Matt might know more about this but I've been told by several people here that if Sensia wasn't here, if we didn't have Sensia for a customer, the amount of remodeling that we would be doing to the plant would be minimized significantly.
That's a true statement.
Is that a true statement?
Yep.
Minus old equipment and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
My question is if we did that, would there be at least initially excess capacity that we could receive a percentage of what we're receiving now from Sensient in that remodel plant? Is there a number that we could receive from them that we would have, say, excess capacity at the beginning of the process that we could receive from them? And what would that number be and what would it look like? And I say that's what we would start with. We figure out what that number is that we could receive from them, and then we write an ordinance and we restrict them to that now.
Well, unless they get their own discharge permit.
Well,
They
I
gotta
don't know
send
what they're
it
gonna be
to us.
able to do that.
They can't put it in bags and carry it home with them or anything like that.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, unless we force their hand to actually, I mean, I've been here for 2 years, and we've been operating on hope as a strategy with Sensient. And unfortunately, hope, for the most part, is not a very good strategy. And in this instance, it's been a terrible one.
See, your only problem is you're not dealing with the people that make the decisions. The decisions are made in Indianapolis.
Oh, I understand that, but
And
if
we're dealing with Juneau.
if we tell them that they can only dump this amount going forward, then the people in Indianapolis have to decide what they're gonna do. Are they gonna help us remodel the plant to take what they need us to take? Or are they gonna end up going someplace else because they can't dump what they wanna dump?
Or they close it?
I don't know. I mean, the only other choice we have is to finance it ourselves. 100%.
Without their help, we
Without
wouldn't
their help.
qualify for that funding though.
The
Because
rate, your rates
our rate structure
would go away.
we go out in the world.
Worse than what's projected.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that's your choice. I mean, I
It's a remodel
You-
versus a rebuild.
yeah, well, and I mean, that's where we're at here. We have to decide, and are we, I mean, severely restrict what they can dump until they decide that, yeah, well, and then quite honestly, if we did that, I would withdraw our contract and from them that we have sent to them and send them a letter, we're withdrawing that contract. And then when they come and then they pay whatever it is to fix it beyond what we have to pay for the lightly remodeled plant, they pay for the rest of it.
Well, let me ask you this, where did you leave that conversation with the engineering bill? Hope you didn't tell them they had 60 or 90 days to pay you for it or anything like that.
According to the invoice, they have 30 days.
Yeah,
30 days and then they get interest.
Are they paying us or are they paying MSA direct?
Paying us. We've already paid MSA.
You're in a good spot.
Well, if we don't make our deadlines, we need to bill them for the entirety of what we have paid through MSA. Because it's their fault. Is there any way to word that? You're gonna owe us $1 million if you don't sign something in 2 months. You know?
See you in court.
Exactly.
You can really see them drag their feet.
But I mean, I don't know how to limit them. You either bill them, because there's no way for us to limit what they can discharge. It's, do you have to close a valve? Well, it's not really gonna do it. You know, there's not, we can't stop what they're giving us. Short
We've been
of,
penalizing them for.
short of either billing them for it
upsets.
or shutting them completely off.
Unless we go,
And their upsets.
we address that and raise the rates.
And their upsets they've been paying in a timely fashion.
Yep,
Money doesn't seem to be an issue in
No.
that
not
sense.
at all.
Deep pockets.
It's anywhere $30,000 to $40,000 a month they're paying in penalties and their monthly fee of what they give us.
What about their dumping of the stuff down the ditch?
Oh, the 500,000 gallons of sludge?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
They had
Somebody hit
significant
us,
spills.
Just happened.
opened up, turned on a pump and went out there.
They had
Discharge.
a crew up there early beginning or end of last week, right?
Thursday, yeah. Up on third shift. Somebody hit a
I
button.
have pictures if you're curious what the
Dumped
creek
it down
looked
that
like.
creek.
That's
So I got
costing
the
them,
DNR
that's
on
costing
that.
them a
The
few
DNR is
bucks.
gonna cost
Yeah.
hundreds of thousands of dollars on that one. I would assume. And that's definitely gonna change their aspect towards wastewater,
Mhm.
whether it's our contract or what they wanna do.
I think we have to send them a letter to demand that we do it as quickly as possible.
Been kind of demanding all along.
Yeah.
No, but you gotta send it, you can't send it here. They don't, that paper lands here and it stays here, Dick. It
Well, then
doesn't
send it
go
where it
down
has
there.
to go, but I mean, we've
It's
been
gotta go
doing
to
it.
Indianapolis.
I agree with Bart, we gotta pressure them, so we gotta do
You gotta
something.
find some way to pressure them.
Well, I don't know how you're gonna do it.
Do we have
Do
any
we
grounds?
legally have to pressure them, not free to pressure them?
I believe we were talking with the PSC. We sent something to the PSC, did we not, to ask them?
Yes, I've contacted them twice and I've not gotten any answers.
And the issue is that your utility is not PSC regulated for the sewer utility, just the water utility. So PSC really doesn't have any skin in the game for,
PSC would step in if there was disparity of rates or something like that, where they complained to the PSC that, hey, we're getting
For
rate.
sewer?
Yeah, I mean, for
I don't
just
know if they
rate.
could for sewer,
yeah,
I don't know if they could for sewer, I think it's just for water, cause otherwise, cause you guys, I mean, cause almost every community in Wisconsin, the sewer rates are not
PSC.
PSC regulated, so they don't really have a say.
Is there definitively anything in our contract with them stopping us from turning them off?
Upsets.
Right, but if we wrote them a letter saying if you don't sign this by a certain date, we will turn you off. Do we have any grounds to do that?
You could say that maybe you could modify that agreement that we just rewrote, right? Because we changed flows and loads at that time and then put in the surge penalties.
But that's.
Well, that wasn't an
what we're waiting
agreement,
for
that
them to
was
sign.
an ordinance.
Yeah, no, they didn't have to sign that. You're right. It was
That's an
just,
ordinance.
this is it.
That's an ordinance,
Yeah.
that's an ordinance, not a agreement. There
There
was
was
no
a notice
contract.
of,
This is what we're doing. So what you're needing from us right now, though, is the go-ahead with this timeline with the belief that it's going to force them to do something.
Correct. Yeah, I
Because
recommend.
they'll have hard numbers.
Yeah. I mean, either way, we're short on time, especially for the interim financing portion. Right? If you want to put that into the loan, which I think would help the whole situation, is you're on this table one. You know, if you're not worried about the interim financing, then everything shifts a little bit more. Maybe
You have a
Nicole.
little more time, you have till June 30th to award a contract to move forward. So
But
that
we
gives
have-
you about 6 months.
I was gonna say, we have till June 30th to award that contract anyway, if we're going with the Clean Water Fund loan this year.
Correct.
Correct? So if we get all of our numbers in a row, send them to Sensient, say this is the numbers, and they come back and say, no, even though we've opened the bids, if I heard you correctly, we can say, we're not accepting any of them, we're not going forward with this. So just because we've opened them and put it out, we're not tied into anything, because we still may not have an answer from Sensient what they're doing.
Correct.
So at that point in time, the reality comes, we could come back to them and say, we are no longer doing your sewer, you need to find your own, because we're just remodeling for our own constituents, our own city residents and businesses that are cooperating with us. More or less? Is that, am I
Yeah.
understanding
Yeah.
correctly? Okay.
Yeah,
But
like
then, would some redesign need to happen on our end before we could go out for bid again? For the redesign?
Yeah, you'd probably change the initial design. I mean, you could still move forward with this. It's still going to be very expensive, but you could operate 2 rings instead of 3 rings. Right? One reason why we put the ditch in was the flexibility of the flows and the lows. So if Sensient's out and we take a different path, then we'd have to talk about what.
We'd have to
It's still $12.6 million that the city then comes up with.
If you go with
If you still get
this,
that
yeah,
far.
it would be, if you take the Sensient loads, flows and loads out, then everything gets smaller. And the price will go down.
Everything but the engineering cost.
No, engineering will go down as well. I mean, I want to be clear too,
Well,
is,
we already sunk that, so I mean, that's already
No, now
sunk.
you're gonna
So
be
we'd have more
redesigning
sign,
all
we have
parts.
more engineering costs.
well, I mean, even if the Sensient stuff doesn't go through, the engineering, like, a lot of the plans, like the screen, yeah, I mean, a lot of the stuff still applies. The ditch is like the main biological portion that's treating Sensient. But, you know, the screen, all the package plant modifications, and chemical building, you know, all that stuff could be modified a little bit, but it's not like you start over at zero.
Right.
Right. So what I'm saying is, you aren't going to pay, you know, somebody threw out $1 million, you aren't going to pay another $1 million if we have to relook at everything. It's the same too if you have to reapply to funding. It's not the full effort, right? It's a lot of it's been done already.
So if we wait until June, can we roll the interim financing still into Clean Water Fund? Or we'll just be paying interest prior to that?
You'd be probably responsible for that interest that's due
So
in
it's not
May.
the full loan.
And so that's what you could, I mean, maybe put on Sensient to maybe pressure them a little bit. I think it was like, I can't remember the amount, but I think it was like upwards of $40,000 in interest. Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, if that's something that you guys could, you know, the lawyer could somehow write in there that, like, if they're holding up this process and the city has to pay this $40,000 in interest, that's a very easy thing to say, Sensient, you're responsible for that because you're holding up this process. We're trying to move this along and you're holding it up. So.
Serious.
So.
It's been a long time.
So it says deadline to roll it in is March 15th, but you're talking about May.
Because we need 6 weeks for the DNR to be able to do all of their paperwork and everything to get the loan ready to close. On April 26th, I think, would be the last day. Because there's 2 days a month that they close loans. 2 Wednesdays a month. And so it would be the fourth Wednesday in April that we would close, so that way you could have the money then to pay off the interim financing before May 1st. So, yep, it all kind of, Matt
So
and I have
this
been
March
looking at
15th
calendars.
is really May 1st. I mean, it says deadline.
Because we have to have the agreement signed, like that we have to submit it to DNR by May 15th, or I'm sorry, by March 15th, so we can close 6 weeks later.
Okay.
Yeah, they will not let us move forward with that if we don't have that agreement. Because the main goal of the DNR loan is to have the construction piece in place. And if you don't have a construction agreement in place, they won't let you close on a loan.
I think we gotta move forward with these dates and have a special meeting as far as what we do next to get Sensient and have the lawyer involved. Right? That's what I'm thinking.
Somehow, I don't know, I guess from my perspective, we need to send them a letter saying we need the contract signed by X date, or we're gonna assume that you're no longer a customer of the Juneau Utility on said date, and we will be shutting off the valve. You're responsible for finding your own sewer treatment.
And with them working with the DNR, I'll bet they'll be very happy to do that. I know this dump may be in our favor, actually.
I know, yeah.
It may be very much in our favor right now. They're already gonna pay the DNR for, yeah.
That was reported, right?
I called the tip line.
What caused that spill?
They had a pump going yet.
Excuse me?
They had their pump going yet and
operator
Yeah,
area.
they emptied their tank, their sludge tank,
Yeah.
it's 500
Push the wrong
thousand
button.
gallons.
And it's right next to the dish, so
Yeah.
it goes right in.
Hey,
I make a motion to go ahead with these dates and allow Sensient, or excuse me, MSA to go forward with these and send the information to Sensient.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
Is there anything else, Nicole, we need to do as far as the sewer rates now, the user rates to get those started? Is that our next piece?
So again, you guys, I know that there's been talk about possibly doing like a step increase where you guys could increase a little bit one month and then, you know, a little bit more the next month or a few months later. We would have to have the final rates in place again by that March 15th in order to be able to close on the loan. You want to see that you have the revenue. Now, that number that is there is not necessarily the final number. We need to, you know, consider how much Sensient's contributing. We need to know exactly how much the construction is going to cost. We need to know the exact interest rate, closing, those kinds of things, which we'll know once we bid on the project. So again, in January, you know, once we get those final numbers, we'll be able to provide another updated rate for you guys at that time. So,
But these have to be in place March 15th.
you would have to have them, let me think about this. You could approve them at like the March meeting to then be in place by like April 1st or something. They have to be, they have to be in place before we close on the loan.
Approved for,
Yes.
okay.
Approved for,
So the full rate wouldn't have to be applied, we could indicate the steps, increased steps to get to that point?
you would have to be at that last step though by March. So I mean, if you wanted to do a step in January, a step in February, a step in March, you definitely could do that, but then, I mean, I don't know if that would be helpful or
Do it
not.
once and get the pain over with.
Yeah, rip off the Band-Aid, I don't know what's better. So, yeah,
Your volume charge here, that's per thousand?
yes. Yeah.
Now, this is roughly calculated with Sensient contributing their share up front.
Yes, correct. Correct, so their rates would not change. They would remain what the agreed contract is that they haven't signed yet. But their rates would not change because they're contributing a component.
I think their rates need to change. If everybody else's rate changes, I think their rate needs to change too.
But they're contributing $4.5 million up front.
Dan, you're saying they pay their portion up front. You're saying if they pay based upon this, the 4.5 million, is they have to pay their 4.5 up front for these rates to be effective, or?
Yeah.
That's what was
Yes.
calculated, yeah?
Yes.
What
Or
if they don't?
they can't pay it on a monthly basis?
Then then their rates would have to be looked at and recalculated.
That would affect our
these
borrowing.
rates?
No.
Okay.
That would affect our borrowing.
It could, I'm sorry, okay, let me go back. It could because the interest rate could go up because.
You know it's gonna go.
Yeah, because then it might not be like a tax exempt bond, as I was saying earlier. And it could, like the parallel cost and things that go into the interest rate calculation could increase those just a bit. But again, then to me, Sensient should have to pay for that
difference.
That difference.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's hard to say exactly right now how much that could impact things, but, yeah.
We want them to come to terms with us in a most reasonable way that we don't ripple the effect because, man, we can't afford to, I mean, our rates would go out of this world here, you know. These are the kind of adjustment you're looking at with them contributing in full up front. You imagine how much it's going to be if they
I mean,
want
you
to leave
guys,
it alone.
your share should still, I mean, technically your share should still be about the same. Cause they,
Yeah, but look at how many thousands of dollars we're gonna save in interest if they contribute $4
right.
million
But then
plus
they should
towards
have to
that $12 million.
contribute then, they should have to contribute then that interest that they're,
Well, I hope so.
that
but-
addi- right. So
But
their
that
rates should
upfront
then-
money is important
Their
to
rates
us.
then would go up significantly because of that. So, I mean, I don't think your rates would go up significantly if they, I don't think it would change, you know, $20 or $30 more than what you're, you know, than what that is. It wouldn't, because they would still have to contribute their portion. And maybe I did not explain that very well, and I think I've run that analysis in the past, haven't we, when we looked at, for Sensient, we looked at how much they would have to contribute, what it would look like,
But if you're
if
taking
they did a
$4.5
lump
million
sum.
out of the equation for interest that's gonna be put on the city of Juneau, that's
But
four,
they have to contribite to that then as well.
That's what
Right.
she's saying, they need to
Right.
contribute.
Because their their portion of the payment would still be the 34.5%. That interest,
Their rates would be affected.
their rates would be affected then.
right. But our rates are gonna have to be dramatically increased there to cover the $4.5 million we're not getting up front.
But
That's just logical.
Sensient would still be responsible for that 4.5.
That difference would be
That
assessed
difference,
to
that,
them.
that they would pay for it. So,
Instead of all
Yeah.
lump sum up front,
Right.
they would pay it over 20 years.
Right.
and the interest that is incurred because of that.
Because of that.
Right.
And they know that, and that's why they want to pay it up front.
'Cause we
Yeah.
started with the assumption that they would
Yeah,
do monthly,
yes.
and then we changed the agreement to go to a lump sum payment when we changed the
Yeah.
contract
Yeah.
based on their feedback.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
It's only makes sense that if we're not borrowing $4.5 million towards that $12 million project, everybody's rates are gonna be, or interest costs are gonna be considerably less. We're gonna be borrowing money for $8 million rather than $12 million.
Right, and that's what I've calculated here. So
That's what
this,
reflects.
yeah,
Mhm.
this reflects that you guys would be borrowing, is it
8.1.
8.1, but then you
Right.
get the principal forgiveness on top of that, so it's actually about $5 million that you guys would be borrowing.
And it's imperative we get that.
Thank you. Anything else we need to know?
I will summarize, so we'll put it out for bid. I'll summarize all the bid numbers.
And we'll look at the rates again, we'll work with Baker Tilly, they reviewed the rates that we pulled together, so they'll look at that again.
Yeah, normally the award goes to the low if they're qualified. We also do our due diligence, and internally we talk, has anybody, you know, had bad experiences with these contractors. We'll get references and we call around and talk to people and say how was recent construction.
Can we have comparative rates for any materials that we can get from anyone?
And so they'll
That
yeah,
kind of sticks in our craw right now.
they'll give us a lump sum, and I mean they hold that through the contract.
And there is contingency also built into the safe drinking water budget, the clean water fund budget, sorry. So it's, currently it's 10% of the construction costs. So if the bids come in high, we have that kind of built into the budget, and then once it bids, that amount goes down to 5%. A contingency. So that way if during the project, you know, there's change orders, things like that, that's built into that budget. So again, if you don't utilize any of the contingency, that's less loan and grant that you would have to take on. So.
Yeah, and normally, because, you know, a lot of the work is underground, a lot of it's unknown, there's gonna be changes during construction. I see a lot of times, though, we might remove portions, or there's something that results in a credit for whatever reason. It's happened.
I'm waiting.
But, I mean, normally there's some give or take, but I mean, I guess where I'm going is don't expect a perfect project,
right.
you know. Construction's messy, especially at a treatment plant.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, I've seen projects where we're well below 1% of a change order, and I've seen some projects that are more. So, a lot of times it depends what we find on the ground. Sometimes it depends on the contractor. I've worked with some good ones. I've worked with some rougher ones. So, but there's contingency in the loan to cover for portions of that. So, and that's in the estimate.
That's in the
we
$12
have.
million estimate that we have right now for the total project cost.
All right,
All right. Thanks, everybody.
thank you. All right, moving on. Approve the vouchers and the checks.
Lori, I have a question. Yeah, I have two questions for you, actually, one for you, and I think the other one is for Peter.
No, go ahead.
The Department of Administration, we paid for public benefits fee for fiscal year '23 quarter one. It's not huge dollars. When was that actually due that we paid in November? It's 2,400.
2013, it's paid quarterly. And
we pay it ahead,
they invoice us.
right?
Their quarters go, their fiscal year goes from July to June. So their second quarter or third quarter benefits, quarter one is what this was for. And that was for July through September.
Okay, thank you.
So that's why, yeah, they do a mid-year to mid-year instead of calendar year.
Okay. HydroCorp, we have a cross-connection control. How often do we have a cross connection control? I think I see this most every month that we're
Quarterly.
paying this.
It is a monthly fee.
Monthly fee, but they
That's-
come like
it's a-
quarterly to do the inspections throughout the city.
It's a 2-year contract that we have, and we pay them monthly.
Is this a contract that we go and rebid out to others for possibility for better pricing, or we're just, well, we've had HydroCorp and this is where we stay?
To be honest with you, I really don't know of any other companies
I don't
that
think
do
there's
it.
anybody else that does it.
It's kind of like the
Okay.
ones that you kind of go to.
Questions to be asked. We're asking other people in the city, check out who your contracts are with and see if you're getting your best bang for your buck. So, that's all I have.
I can go and look and see, but I don't know where to find anybody.
I move to approve vouchers and checks.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, hold on a second. Gotta figure out which where are we? All right, so Ron, and who seconded?
Bart.
Bart?
We did not go, did we approve the minutes of the meeting, the previous meeting?
Nope.
I think we skipped that spot.
Oh, we skipped that? Okay, okay. We'll do this first and then
Yeah.
we'll go back.
That's fine.
Jumping around.
We're gonna all have to go home and have a drink.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I'll take care of that as soon as I get home. Maybe more than one. We're gonna approve the vouchers and the checks. Are there any more questions? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Now we'll go back to the minutes of the previous meetings. Any additions or corrections? If not, I will entertain a motion. Motion by Ross. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion by Bart. Any questions at all? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Moving on with the monthly business. Prior month income statement.
We lost $47,000 in electric. What does that attribute it to? Just less sales?
Yep, so in October, we had revenue, as you see, 364. October, that's a month where we're not using AC and we're also not using a lot of heat for furnaces, so our revenue goes drastically down as far as our sales. We see this year to year as far as October always being our worst year. If you go back to September, we were at 478, August was 519, it does this little drop and it starts coming back up now.
Any other questions?
Always a perfect seat too.
There are no council acts affecting the utility. Consumption and loss.
Are we getting any better with the sewage treatment unaccounted for? I mean, it's better than last month. Is that just because we haven't had any rain then? Is that?
Well, I mean, they did the work on Stoke and Highland, so maybe we'll see better. I mean, it's down
Yeah, it's down,
14%.
yeah.
The average is 19 for the year, so.
And any other questions on consumption and loss? Totals of delinquent customers. It's going up. All right. Reports of officials, utility accountant.
Okay, first item is to discuss and possibly approve Pam coming off probation. She's due to come off December 13th. The customers have been very happy with her. I've noticed a lot more people interacting with her than they did with Kylie. She handles them really well, and she's doing a great job. She's catching on, and she has been attending training as much as she can with WPPI to learn more things. She's going on Thursday next week for Energy IP to learn about metering and that stuff. So I think that she's doing a great job and that she should be able to come off probation.
She's a very personal person, so when it comes to customer service and interaction, she does a well job. And she always wants to know.
She looks at the whole picture.
Yeah, she wants to know more than what she just has to know, I guess. That's what's
Yeah.
important,
Yeah.
which is good.
She's always happy.
She is always happy.
Kind of makes me depressed then.
Yeah, I think that
people don't you?
I think that she's been doing a wonderful job.
And she's going to be actually taking on a little bit more. She's willing to take it on too. Part of how things have been going since we changed over to AMI is that the electric myself has been doing the water marriage installations where the water crew goes out and changes out the meters, and I have to import the reports and set up the metering because we were initially trained on that. And I spoke to Kylie because it's kind of a nuisance on me to drop what I'm doing to put in a water meter installation. So she's actually gonna be getting all the software imported onto her computer. I'll be making the transfer with the help of WPPI, and then she's gonna be taking that portion over, since it's more billing driven, report anyways, so she'll be taking on a little additional work, but she's up for the challenge.
Would move to approve Pam coming off probation as of 12/13/22.
Second. Motion by Cheryl, second by Dick to Pam come off the probation. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
Okay, item number 2 we already took care of. And number 3, the update on the accounts payable. We do have, I think I reported last month, we have the checking account set up. We did get our checks in on Friday. I did train with Kaylee early last week, I believe it was last week. And on how the accounts payable system works, and she's got a checklist that she's gonna send me to make sure everything's covered. So I believe as of this week, we're gonna give it a shot and start doing our own. So that'll help with lessening their workload up at City Hall, and we'll have a little bit better understanding of everything we're doing, so we're looking forward to that. I think that's all I've got.
Anybody have any questions for Lori? If not, we will move on to Nick.
Yeah, so Highland Street, the street lighting has been completed. If you guys have driven down the new road, the street lighting is up and operational. We do have to put one more additional light back by the Goose Trail crossing there. We had to take down that overhead service, street light service for the excavating, and we kept it down momentarily for them to travel the trucks underneath it, so they didn't snag that overhead wire. So we'll be putting that up, if not this week, early next week. So the street lighting has been completed up there. We did finally receive payment from Charter on the Highland
Yes.
joint project. Basically the answer we got was the guy that was working with us wasn't supposed to be working with us, and even though he still is working with me on this East Oak project, so.
Yeah, he said he's no longer with the project manager or something, and it was like within, the new guy called me, and it was within like 4 days that we received the check. And I forwarded him, he asked about how the whole situation's been going. I've been trying to collect since January, and I forwarded him all the emails that we had back and forth with the people at Charter, and that's like within the next week. By the next week, we had the check.
Interest as well?
So
We're
the
still working on the interest.
interest got rolled onto that project manager, who I'm still dealing with. So, and I'm in contact with them, so that'll be addressed yet.
What are you doing with him on Oak Street if they didn't go joint trench with us?
So he's got a deadline of the end of April, otherwise poles are coming down.
Okay.
I already
Good.
submitted that.
Good.
And it's within our contract rates of our pole attachment agreements. We're actually are well past our date of, allowing them to keep those poles up. But I talked to Jason, I asked him, when do these poles need to be done? He said end of April, so they got the deadline end of April, otherwise poles are coming down. So,
Those people are gonna be livid when they gotta see somebody coming in and trenching all through their yards again.
I agree.
What a shame.
And I even gave them the option too, this was the perfect opportunity when they're digging this base out, they could have ran their main line down the whole road and cut costs significantly for them. And they were not, they didn't seem like they really cared, so.
Public service doesn't allow us to mandate that through city ordinance, so why don't you do some research on that sometime?
As far as
require them to go joint trench with us.
So they can't, we're not able to require them to go joint. But I have done some research on it where utilities will do the work and send them the bill, and they have been successful doing that. But I don't know, I'd have to look some more, I wanna look into that more before putting in pipe and make sure you're gonna get paid for it, because
Well, the sad part about it is now when they come in after the fact, the wires will just be out of sight. They won't be at the depth that they
Right.
belong or that they need to be and what have
And that
you.
was-
So they think they're saving themselves money, but the customer's getting an inferior job when it's all said and done, so.
Our substation, North substations, inspections were completed. They didn't find anything severe, just some tightening of some ground, some CTs that just had some screw jumpers. They put in actual jumpers for those. They tightened a few clamps, and they added a little nitrogen because the pressure was just slightly low. But nothing out of concern as far as it's what they normally see after new construction, just some minor tightening of some equipment. All the regulators checked out, reclosure controls checked out, and I'm still waiting on the oil samples, which he said from just taking the sample, everything looked good. Now they basically just gives us a baseline now for future years testing for the oil. So North Substation is back up and running as it should. We didn't have any issues when we were operating on 2 substations. We finalized the Christmas tree lighting for the chambers. If you guys drive down East Oak, you'll see the Christmas trees are up and lighted, or lit. I didn't do a final invoice on it, but it roughly costs me $848 as far as the labor and equipment. So that'll be, I believe we did $1,000, if I'm not mistaken, $1,000 we did a donation. So does that money stay in the CDA then, that additional, that difference? I don't know how that works.
No, you just turn over.
Okay.
Those are $200 fuse holders I gave you.
Oh, there you go, start trying that, there you go. But yeah, Dan helped us out with, was it six fuse holders?
All we needed.
Yeah, and we were not able to core drill them. So what we have right now is basically it's a glorified extension cord going down that we are going to remove after the season. Plus with the anticipation of that road getting redone and upgrading the street lighting, it didn't make sense for us to put in way more effort. That would have been over $1,000 to then just take them down and replace with new ones next year or the year after. It should be. So it's up, it looks good. I saw that they were playing music last weekend, so I can't believe those speakers work yet.
Yeah, I tried them out first before I went any further, but yeah,
So-
the amp and the CD players in the back of my office, working well.
We have a pair of solar projects that are hitting town, residential solar projects. One's going to be on North Main Street next to the current barbecue place that's closing down. And the other is going to be one of the Habitat homes on South Main Street. Been working with Eric Kostecki, from WPPI, who has done this with other utilities in the area, making sure that we are filling out the appropriate forms and applications for them, and the appropriate equipment and connections that need to be on the homes to prevent backfeed onto our system, because that's always the main concern with solar, is that they can't put anything back onto our system in the case of an outage where we're working on equipment and it now becomes hazardous. And so we do tests to make sure that that's not possible. So one of those will be starting shortly, and then the other one's anticipated early spring. East Oak Street updates. Soper has removed all the sidewalks and has the base and put the sidewalks down, and they're digging out the base, road base. So with that, we are putting in our street lighting, our piping right now. We got 2.5 spans in right now, and we're going to be working with them as they go along to make our job's easier. It was a little skeptical at first with frost and how it was gonna go, but it's actually going pretty smooth. So, and Sober's been nice to work with, so I don't have any complaints with them other than that. So, yeah.
How do we fare throughout the summer as far as our peak loading of our subs and whatever?
Say that again?
How do we fare during the summer months with the heat and whatever, our subs ever?
As far as capacity?
Yeah.
We're at half capacity on our
Oh,
substations. We were at 11 megawatts during the peak summer months, which is good.
Mhm.
I know we talk negatively about the big guys over here, but they're almost half our load as far as
Oh, yeah.
revenue sales for electric. So, yeah, as far as capacity, we're great. It's that line loss that we get, that voltage drop. That's our concern. As far as growth in the future, we're fine now with these residential homes, but if a big industrial building decides to go up, that's where the concern is going to be with our current voltage. But capacity, we got plenty of capacity.
Our loading at Whiskers got to be very stable, isn't it?
Yeah, it's stable, but it's hardly, it's
Yeah.
just,
Way oversized.
but with what they give you, I even undersized what they gave us, and it's still oversized. But
Keep an eye on the service on the old building, because they're talking about adding air in the old building now too. So.
And they were having problems there before, weren't they?
No, I mean,
So that's all I got.
Does anybody have any questions for Nick? If not, Peter?
Okay, well, last month, we got a complaint from 511 East Oak Street about their lateral being plugged. They moved in, I think, I don't know if it was August or September or something like that, but the boring that was done by Intercon was prior to that. What turned out was that they had bored, I think it was a 3-inch or a 4-inch gas line through their sewer lateral, and so had RG Smith come and dig it up and repair it. Took like 4 or 5 hours to do that. So, and then the following week we got another complaint down the block on East Oak that her service was backing up. They were doing boring, I believe, the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. And she said that it was slow to drain, I guess, on Thanksgiving through the weekend. Got the call on Monday. Called, I got the number of Alliant, I believe, Jason at Alliant, to contact Intercon to have them come out and televise their line. It took them quite a while because I guess they were down in Madison doing some work, so they came up with their TV crew and went up the line from about mid-block. Weren't able to get up the lateral, so we were kind of understanding with her, it's like, unfortunately, ma'am, you're going to have to get a plumber to come in. So Alex contacted Andy from Beaver Plumbing, and they came right out. Televised from inside the house and determined that it was a blockage on her side. So, because we had Intercon also come out and dig up in the front of the house because we thought that maybe they had done the same thing, had bored through it, but it was actually the sewer line was, I don't know, 8 or 10 feet below grade, and I think the line was only at like 4 feet or something like that, so it was not bad. So we kind of touched on Sensient last Thursday, found out that from one of the employees that somebody had turned on a pump at their loadout station. There was a hose there and emptied their sludge storage tank. It's a temporary tank, I guess. Supposedly it holds 500,000 gallons. So Alex went out and took some video and some pictures, and I went there too, and he ended up calling the DNR tip line, and they were like, yeah, we already know about it. So they were going to send I guess, I don't know what they call them, like, I guess wardens out there, basically, enforcement. And I called our DNR basin engineer, Jason Wadinsky, about it, because this coming first quarter, we have to do some sampling at the creek, so I wanted to let him know, so hopefully it doesn't impact our wet testing that we have to do, because we have to sample where our outfall is, and we have to sample upstream. So I don't know if there's a residue there, but he's like, thanks for letting me know, and so.
Yeah, upstream, go upstream where they just dumped in.
Yeah, well, hopefully it washes everything down, that we won't have any problems with that test.
This is the third time since I've been here that it's happened.
Well, like Cheryl said, this might be to our advantage. I don't know.
You better not stop them from doing that
I
again.
was gonna say,
Well, it sounds like the people, the employees that they have just don't really know what they're doing, so they only have really one or two guys that are on the ball, and they're usually on day shift, so. Anyways. So, and then I had one other thing that had to do with the Bayers at 360 South Main. I had gotten some phone calls from his wife and from Jim himself that it was arcing inside of their house and everything. So I think you and Shane got the call, went out there, and you tested.
Yep, I forgot to.
You tested the meter socket and everything was fine. And then I think you went in that afternoon and the ground was fine, I guess. And
Yeah, so
come to find out, it was a neutral that was in your handhole that had separated or something like that.
So what happened was the homeowner called about some flickering lighting, some marking.
Yeah, some marking inside of there.
The homeowner was not home when we went to test that meter. Without an open neutral, without any load, you can't tell any fluctuation on each phase. Usually with an open neutral, if you have load on it, you'll see a drop on one leg and then a rise on the other leg, upwards of 50 volts. When we got there, we had steady voltage between our two incoming lines. We had 123 on both legs. And Dan was already notified, I think, at the time. So Dan went there at night, was able to turn the furnace on, a little hair dryer, something like that, and then he was able to see that fluctuating voltage. So the following morning, we went in there right away. And usually with open neutrals, they're hard to find, but they're not hard to find when they're right in the handhole. But yeah, we don't. This is the first service I've seen this, but they have solid aluminum as their conductors, and within the handhole there is probably 2 feet long, and within that 2 feet long, there's probably 2.5 feet of wire. And out of that 2.5 feet of wire, 2 feet of that had multiple corrosion breaks in that insulation. So there's potentially there was 6 faults in that section of wire. Hopefully it was the one break was tracking up and then corroding. But I have a suspicion that there might be some future issues with that service, and if that's the case, we'll have to put in a whole new line, and it doesn't pay to keep splicing that section of wire because it's just going to keep happening. So I told her when she was there that morning, we had her up and running in half hour, and if she sees any suspicious of, flickering lights or dimming when she's putting load on, she's supposed to notify us right away, and we'll get a new service in for them.
That's all I got.
Anybody have any questions for Peter? Okay, thank you. All right, I'm supposed to give an update on Sensient, and I think we covered that pretty good. So the only thing I have is on December 16th, Nick and I will be in Sun Prairie with a budget for WPPI.
They had a Q&A meeting that I video conferenced in on, and everything is they're 4% over budget with the natural gas costs, because natural gas is the driving force for our power costs. because of the generation plants. And other than that, everything looks good. They have projections as far as natural gases go and budgeting for that, so we should find out additional information on that with that upcoming meeting.
I think we should let Sensient know by letter or somehow officially that of the action that we took tonight. So they understand these dates and what it means to what we're gonna be doing. I mean, if they don't come through, we're gonna have to make a decision on probably shutting down the project.
Lori, that $250 charge that Newberger and Sweet had in there, is that relative to the Sensient contract? City attorney, I see it was part of your expenses, or is that for
I
something else?
don't recall.
I mean, has he been actively involved in this in any way, shape, or form?
Not that I know of, no.
I think the fastest way to get them to move off center is our attorney contact their attorney.
Yeah.
Because this playing with these plant supervisors
Well, they
is just a
can't-
waste
they
of
can't
time.
do anything.
These people can't make any decisions locally. And if it's laying on some attorney's desk,
And we have to stress to them that we're under a time crunch now.
Well,
Because we made a,
somebody's obviously told this attorney there's no essence of importance here or anything like that, because why would it lay on some attorney's desk for 5 months?
Well,
I think the MSA needs to be in contact with our city attorney too, as far as if this deadline's not made, this is the interest, this is the additional cost that Sensient's gonna accrue. All that information spelled out, so that, you know, the city attorney's not gonna know that information without in contact with MSA, so.
I understand Sensient by putting this off is delaying that outlay of extravagant money.
right.
But they continue to pay these other fees all along. There's gotta be an end result here. There's gotta be an ending point where, hey, you know, you gotta buck up now. You know, we put up with this long enough, you know, so. I just can't believe that anybody would give you, Mac, the answer that, oh, it's on the attorney's desk, when he gets to it, he gets to it.
that was John Long's boss that brought that up.
I'd be embarrassed to tell anybody that.
I thought he spent more time talking about 20 years down the line what he wants the city of Juneau to do. And I thought, Matt and I looked at each other and went, what the hell's this have to do with this? Why are we even talking about this? We're worried about now.
You can't do anything for your future if you don't do anything now.
I said, we're worried about
We're not
now.
interested.
And they just didn't seem to care.
So was his boss out of Indianapolis?
I didn't know, where is he on?
Michigan?
He came from Canada. And before that, he was at the plant in Michigan.
Anyway,
Yeah.
somehow we should inform them what we did so they understand our timeline.
And we're not any farther ahead than we were 30 days ago talking about this, let alone 5 months ago.
Right.
Matt,
Yeah, I expressed our frustration also, for sure.
Matt did say that he's gonna be giving them that timeline. He's gonna be submitting that to them, that he presented tonight.
Is it gonna get to the right people?
If, I'm sure we can let him know who we want it to go to. If we-
I don't know if we know who it's gotta go to.
That's the problem.
And if it goes there, do they forward it on? That's the big thing, that we don't know.
So we'll Google.
I talked to Jim.
Ask them who we have to
Yeah,
contact.
yeah. I've asked Jim Vermillion that question when I talked to him.
He's the engineer?
Yeah.
keep asking.
But he might be more worried about the stuff going down that ditch than where,
Yeah, they got that, where you go now.
But he's only here.
It's not gonna go anywhere
It's
if
like
he doesn't
once
move.
a week. I think.
It'll all be going
Not
down
even
the ditch.
once a
Really?
week.
Oh,
Dead
Chrome
creek.
is like every Monday.
No, when he called me that day, that's the first time he's been here in 4.5 weeks.
Oh.
Well, there has to be a way to find out.
I'll get a
Like the
hold,
mayor
I'll
said,
call him
go lawyer to
and see.
lawyer or whatever. You know, there has to be a way to.
I don't like filling our attorney's pockets neither,
I-
but, I mean, it gets to the point where we're not getting anywhere this way.
We can
No.
still charge it back to him.
Yeah.
Gotta collect it.
Okay. I will see what I can get done. Mr. Mayor, you have anything?
Oh, I spoke enough of tonight. I guess just wish you all a happy holiday, safe and prosperous one.
All right, any old business? Don't bring up sense yet. Any new business?
Move to
Motion,
adjourn.
Second.
motion by Cheryl, second by Bart to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned at 8:26.